There's a moment you know too well, when the day ends and you feel that heavy shame, not because you messed something up, but because you let another day slip without doing what you said you would. It's the sting of watching yourself stand still while life moves forward. This is the weight of promises broken in silence, of telling yourself tomorrow while knowing that tomorrow has no intention of arriving. You pass the mirror and feel a strange disconnection from the face looking back, not out of hatred, but because you no longer trust the person you see. You've made vows before, you've felt conviction before, but somehow, when morning comes, that man is gone, replaced by the same restless mind, reaching for the same easy escapes. Carl Jung observed that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. What if this avoidance of discipline isn't laziness at all, but a rejection of the future self you're meant to meet? What if the unfocused, easily distracted version of you is not your true nature, but simply the one you've rehearsed most often? We've been taught to believe discipline is built from effort, from sheer willpower, but that's an incomplete truth. Effort without identity is like trying to build a house on sand. It collapses under its own weight. Discipline isn't something you grind into existence. It's something you remember, and you can't remember it while thinking of yourself as someone who must become disciplined. That belief keeps discipline in the future, forever out of reach. Jung believed that people fail to become who they are, not because they don't try, but because they live estranged from their own potential. They treat transformation as something external, a better job, a new routine, another motivational speech, when in reality, what they need isn't more, but less. Less noise, less escape, less avoidance of the responsibility you have, not to others, but to your own becoming. This is not the kind of responsibility imposed by bosses, family, or deadlines. This is the sacred contract between who you are and who you were meant to be. Discipline lives here, not in checklists, not in alarms, but in devotion to that contract. When you think back to your most alive moments, they rarely happen during comfort or indulgence. They came when you kept your word to yourself, when you did what you once thought was beyond you. That wasn't just pride, it was integrity. The human psyche craves unity, and the more you live in contradiction, saying one thing but doing another, the more your subconscious will rebel. Resistance is not laziness. It's your mind rejecting the fraud of a misaligned life. The lack of discipline is not the disease, it's the symptom. The real wound is the divided self. One side making plans, the other side dismantling them. This fracture deepens with every cycle of intent and abandonment. Jung warned that what you resist not only persists, but grows in size. The disciplined part of you doesn't vanish when ignored. It waits. It becomes part of your shadow, hidden alongside the ambitious, structured, and powerful version of you that was locked away. Not because it was weak, but because its strength frightened you. Strength demands proof, and proof removes excuses. To step fully into discipline is to step into a place where you can no longer hide behind potential. You must become the evidence, and for many, that's far more terrifying than failure. If this already stirs something in you, then stay here until the very end. Because what comes next will not only explain why discipline has felt like a constant battle, it will show you where the fracture began, why you resist order, and how to reclaim the parts of yourself you exiled long ago. By the end, you will see discipline not as a burden, but as the clearest reflection of who you really are. You didn't lose discipline in a single moment. It was taken from you slowly, in small, almost invisible ways, somewhere in your past. You learned that consistency could be punished. Maybe you spoke up with excitement about something you cared for and were dismissed or mocked. Maybe you built something small with pride, only to watch someone tear it down. Maybe you followed a routine, showed initiative, and it was met with indifference or even hostility. These moments didn't just sting. They planted the seed of mistrust in your own capacity to sustain effort. And once that belief was damaged, the part of you that thrives on order and persistence retreated for protection. Jung described this as the repression of the noble archetypes: the king, the warrior, the builder, the aspects of our psyche that seek to lead, create, and bring stability. These aren't abstract ideals. They're psychological patterns that once guided your discipline. When they are exiled, they do not vanish. They live in the shadows, twisted by neglect. The king who once brought order now doubts his right to rule. The warrior who once faced challenge now hides from confrontation. The builder who once created structure now dismantles it before it can stand. Each failed attempt at discipline is not just a missed opportunity. It's a confrontation with these ghosts. The accumulated voices of those who once told you that you can't follow through, that you always stop halfway, that you're not the kind of person who can change. And here's the truth. Most people never see. Your failures rarely come from lack of effort. They come from an identity that contradicts the change you're trying to make. You cannot outwork a self-image that insists you are inconsistent. You will always return to the man you believe yourself to be, no matter how sophisticated your tools or systems. The real work, then, is not to fight harder, but to shift that belief at its root. Imagine two versions of yourself standing side by side. One is calm, deliberate, unwavering. He values order, keeps his word, and carries himself with quiet sovereignty. The other seeks comfort, avoids discomfort, and longs to disappear into ease. The mistake most make is trying to kill the latter. But that comfort-seeking self is not your enemy. He is your protector, guarding you from the sting of failure, the pain of humiliation, the memory of rejection. He has been doing his job so well that he has kept you from the risks that could redefine you. Until you acknowledge him, until you ask what he is protecting you from, he will continue to hold you back in the only way he knows. When you begin to see this clearly, discipline stops being a battlefield and becomes a return. You are not trying to become someone new. You are reclaiming the throne you abandoned. The king archetype, as Jung suggested, is not a tyrant, but a stabilizer. The inner sovereign who organizes life from the center outward. When this archetype is integrated, discipline flows not from external pressure, but from internal alignment. You stop performing for approval and begin creating an order that reflects who you have decided to be. This is why the shame of being undisciplined cuts so deep. It's not about wasted time or undone tasks. It's about the erosion of self-respect without order. You don't just lose productivity, you lose the thread of who you are. A fractured self is not only inefficient, it's haunted. And unless the lost archetypes, the builder, the warrior, the guide, are welcomed back, you will keep reaching for motivation that never lasts. Once you understand that discipline is the outward architecture of an inner order, the path becomes clear. You do not need to wait for the perfect mood, the perfect time, or the perfect plan. You begin with identity. You act as the man who already embodies the discipline you seek, even before you feel ready. And the more you live in alignment with that identity, the more the fracture begins to heal. Time is not neutral. Every day you delay, every moment you choose distraction over direction. You're not just losing hours. You're shaping yourself into someone who accepts the loss. Regret is not built in a single blow. It's constructed brick by brick from the minutes we squander. Jung warned, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. Those words should be unsettling, because they strip away illusion. They reveal that you're already proving who you are. Through your actions, through your rituals, through the way you treat the hours given to you. Most men don't realize when they've drifted. They just wake up one day and see that the man in the mirror is not the man they once imagined becoming, but a version sculpted by hesitation, avoidance, and small compromises. This is why solitude so often feels like a test. To reclaim discipline, you must be willing to stand apart from the patterns and people that keep you numb. Waking up means walking alone for a time. Many shrink from this because they mistake solitude for punishment when it's really initiation. In that quiet, you face the truth without the noise of others to distract you. Every decision becomes a declaration. Will you be disciplined to your distractions or disciplined to your becoming? Because everyone is disciplined to something. Some are committed to comfort, others to excuses, and a rare few to the steady work of shaping themselves. When you begin to align your discipline with time itself, your life shifts. Instead of moving against you, time begins to carry you. You feel its rhythm. You sense the stability that comes from honoring it. Discipline, at its highest level, stops being about force and becomes ritual. You wake up, not because an alarm demands it, but because you get to meet your oath again. You train, not to punish yourself, but to remember yourself. You nourish your body, not for vanity, but because it is the vessel through which your will becomes real. Everything aligns, and each small act echoes your deeper truth. But here's the part few will tell you. Becoming disciplined requires grief. To step into the man you are meant to be, you must let another version of you die. The one who broke his own word, who lived behind someday, who filled the emptiness with distraction. He cannot lead you forward. You do not bury him with guilt, but with honor, recognizing that he kept you safe in his own way. He carried you until you were ready to carry yourself. When you thank him and release him, the energy you once spent in internal war becomes fuel for building. And what you build will not be flimsy. You will design mornings that root you in clarity, routines that hold you steady when motivation fails, schedules that free you rather than cage you. You will discover that order is not an enemy, but armor. And in a chaotic world, a calm, structured man becomes rare and valuable. This shift does not happen in a week or after one burst of inspiration. It grows from the decision to live as the man who keeps his own word. When you commit to this, you begin to understand what Jung meant when he said wholeness comes not from adding more, but from embracing all that you are. Even the parts you thought were weaknesses. Integration is leadership. You are not here to abandon the parts of you that sought comfort. You are here to lead them. And when your inner house is in order, discipline becomes quiet, steady, and unshakable. You walk through life not to impress, but to fulfill the vow you've made to yourself. Return to your vow. Now, not tomorrow. Not when the conditions feel perfect, but now. Because this moment is not just another point in time. It is the threshold between the man you've been and the man you're willing to become. The heartbeat you feel right now, the unease in your chest, is not anxiety. It's initiation. You do not need another burst of motivation or another speech to convince you. You are already worthy of living with discipline. You have simply forgotten how it feels to trust yourself completely. Carl Jung believed that wholeness is not achieved by chasing what is missing, but by reclaiming what you have rejected. That means welcoming back the parts of yourself you've labeled as lazy, inconsistent, or weak. Not to let them lead, but to fold them into the whole. These parts carry history, pain, and lessons. They are not there to sabotage you, but to protect you from wounds you never wanted to face. Leadership over yourself begins when you stop treating them as enemies and start guiding them as parts of your own house. When that happens, something shifts. Discipline stops being loud. It doesn't need to announce itself or fight for recognition. It moves quietly, daily, like a steady pulse through everything you do. You find yourself showing up on the hard days without needing to bargain with your feelings. You choose structure over chaos, presence over distraction, action over hesitation, not because you're forcing yourself, but because these choices have become part of who you are. Every act reinforces the truth. You are the kind of man who keeps his own word. From here, the question changes. It is no longer, how do I make myself disciplined? It becomes, what does a disciplined man build? And the answer will shape not just your days, but your life. A man in order builds relationships on trust, work on mastery, and a future that outlasts him. He walks into the chaos of the world, not to be consumed by it, but to bring form to it. This is the essence of sovereignty, the ability to govern yourself so you can lead in whatever arena you enter. Understand this. Time is watching. It will either accumulate into a legacy or into regret. Every choice is a vote for one of those outcomes. When you respect time, it becomes an ally. When you neglect it, it turns against you. That is why discipline is not about endless grinding or punishing yourself. It is about living in rhythm with the future you've sworn to create. The man you once dreamed of becoming is not waiting for a perfect day to appear. He is built moment by moment in the decisions you make now. So walk forward with that knowledge. Let this be the last time you tell yourself tomorrow when you mean never. The next time you feel the urge to delay, remember this. Every delay is a lesson in dying before your life is finished. But every act of discipline is a lesson in living with your whole self intact. Jung once said that meaning is not found in avoiding life's dragons, but in confronting them. Discipline is your sword. Use it, not to dominate others, but to lead yourself without compromise. Because when you do, you will never avoid discipline again. Not because you have to, but because you will have finally remembered what it feels like to be whole. And a man who is whole has no reason to run from his own word.